All right, friends, welcome to this webinar on 10 critical sales questions. My name is Ryan Dohrn, and I'm thrilled to have so many of you joining me today as we talk about probably one of the most fundamental issues that all of us that sell media every day face, and that is, how do we take a great sales call and turn it into a closed deal? And one of the things that I've noticed overall that I really have to do is I really need to ask really great questions. So when I was working with Christy over at the magazine manager and the newspaper manager to come up with a topic for today, we decided on this topic because I'm asked about this a lot. I've got the very good fortune to travel quite a bit. I work with about 75 media companies a month. Yesterday I was in North Glen, Colorado, working with Western Media LLC. They're in North Glen, and they've got 2 B2B magazines, training their sales team and doing some strategy. And this came up as that topic as well. So my company is Brainswell Media, and my system I sell with is called 360 Ad Sales Training, and many of you have been a part of that. A new project of ours is Sales Training World, and that's for everybody in sales. And of course, I'd love to have you buy a copy of my book, Selling Backwards, because that's going to help me put my kid through college. And you can find that on Amazon if you're an Amazon Prime member or Barnes & Noble. As I mentioned, I've worked with about 400 different magazine titles over the course of the last 15 years. I still sell media every day. I actively sell media, and I think that keeps my programs relevant. About 5,000 ad sales reps is where we're at, have been trained to date. For those of you that don't know me, I've had a wonderful opportunity, very blessed, to have the opportunity to work for some of the best publishers in the business. From Vance Publishing in Chicago, northern suburbs of Chicago, early on in my career, to my last post at the great company called Penwell in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where I served as a publisher of 6 really fantastic titles that are there. After our presentation, many of you are going to email me and you're going to ask, hey, where do we find out more information? The website for that is 360adsales.com. That's where you'll find the podcast that I host each month. That's where you can sign up to receive monthly ad sales training advice. You can sign up for free webinars like this and so many others. You can also find video-based training. So if you're looking for more training, you can bring me to your office and we'll charge you for that, or you can go online and you can pay for some more training, and love to be of help to you. All right, most salespeople that I encounter talk about 90% of the sales call. Now, why is that? The reason that it happens so frequently is because most salespeople can't stand silence. Silence is like, oh my gosh, there's nobody talking right now. I need to be talking. And silence can kill salespeople, and it can kill deals. I'm big on asking questions and trying to get some really good answers. Now, I'm going to share with you today the 10 critical questions that I ask most often. Now, let me be clear. I don't always ask 10 questions. Sometimes I only ask 1, and I'm going to give you that one in just a second. But for me, the essence or the foundation of consultative selling is asking really great questions. What you don't want to do is be one of those sales reps that asks vague, the wah kind of questions, vague questions. Let me give you some examples. A vague question would be, tell me about your 2018 marketing plans. Okay, that you think that that's a pointed question. You've been trained that it's an open-ended question, but here's what I found. It's a question that everybody asks. You don't want to be like everybody. Why would you want to be like everybody else? In the media business, because there's hundreds, if not thousands of choices, one of the things that I found is I need to be unique. I need to find differentiating factors. And for me, you can definitely tell the intelligence of a person based upon the questions that they ask. And so that's where this comes from. Stop talking, start asking some really great questions. So here we go. What are your 10 critical questions? And if you have questions about these questions, chat them over and we'll be sure to weave them into the conversation as well. All right, are you ready, friends? Here we go. Number 1 of 10. I would say to an advertiser something along the lines of, when you think about marketing your business, do you want to be seen in your community or in your industry or in your sector? Do you want to be seen as present, competitive, or dominant? So Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, when you think about marketing your business, your product, your service, whatever it is, do you want to be seen by your community, your industry, your sector as present, competitive, or dominant? Now, I first heard this presented to me, this question, by a wonderful sales director in Springfield, Missouri. Her name is Amy Scott. And Amy said that she had heard this in some training that she was a part of, and I love this question. The reason I love this question is because most advertising salespeople are taught to ask questions on a sales call in an effort to figure out an advertiser's budget. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with that line of thought, but if you've been selling media as long as I have, and if you sold media yesterday the way that so many of us did, you know that either advertisers are going to lie to you about their budget, they're going to say they don't have a budget, or they're going to say, I don't know. So why waste a question on trying to figure out somebody's budget if you can lead them down a better path, a better question? When you think about marketing your business to this community that you serve, do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? And most advertisers are going to say dominant. They all want to be dominant. So then what I do is I present to them on the spot 3 different packages. I present to them a dominant package. This is what it would take to dominate the market. All right, somebody just asked, how do you know what it'll take to dominate the market? You know because you live in that market. You know because you see advertisers in your market or your community that are clearly dominant, Let me talk about the community that I live in. We'll do a consumer example and a B2B example. In the community where I live, there's a jeweler called Windsor Jewelers. Windsor Jewelers advertises on radio, TV, in nearly every magazine, in the newspaper. They're a dominant jeweler in the market, not because of how much they sell, honestly because of how well they market. If you think about companies like Coca-Cola, think about companies like Red Bull, Michelin, all these national brands, they're dominating brands. So whether you're a B2B company or you're a company that serves a community, there are dominant players. Let's talk about healthcare for a second. One of the biggest companies in healthcare is a company called Medtronics. Medtronics, everywhere I turn as I work within the healthcare space, I'm constantly seeing Medtronics. As a matter of fact, I took my little toy Yorkie to the vet a few nights ago, and I saw Medtronics, advertising. I saw Medtronic equipment, and sort of they're a dominant player. So as I'm presenting these proposals and asking this question, I can present to them on the spot a dominating option, a competitive option, and a present option. Now, I guess there is a 4th option, and that's being absent, but I don't know that they want to do that. So rather than focus in on the question being, what's your budget, I want to know more along the lines of what's your goal, but I want to ask it using this type of language. Do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? And then present options and success stories based around those 3 market presence ideas: present, competitive, or dominant. So thank you, Amy, from 417 for bringing that question up. I now use it on a regular basis in my sales. I find that it leads to some absolutely fantastic conversations with advertisers. If I only had to ask one question on a sales call, or only had time for one, that would be the one that I would use. When you think about your marketing and how you're perceived by your customers, do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? And then I walk them through those 3 potential scenarios with success stories as well as with proposal pricing. Okay? All right, number 2 of 10, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser. If we could create the perfect ad for you, what do you want to see happen from that ad? All right, question number 2. If we could create the perfect ad for you, what do you want to see happen from that ad? Now, the reason that I love this question is because this question is all related to managing advertiser expectations. Okay? This question is solely related to managing advertiser expectations. There's a sales woman that I work with on a regular basis, and I've known her for years, and she is fantastic, just fantastic sales rep. One of the things she does better than anybody else is she manages customer expectations up front. This is one of her go-to questions. If we could create the perfect ad for you or the perfect ad campaign for you, what would you want to see happen from that ad? Now, maybe it's a print ad. What would you want to see happen from that print ad? If it's an online ad, what would you want to see happen from that online ad? And here's the reason why. I was just, I guess it would have been last week, working with a really great sales rep out of New York. His name is Joe. And Joe said, Ryan, I have a problem. An advertiser has said to me they're getting no return on investment from their print advertising. They've run a print ad with us. They got just one single phone call. So I looked at the ad and I said to Joe, so what were their expectations? He said, what do you mean? I said, what were their expectations? And he said, I guess they wanted to get a lot of phone calls. Did you know that in advance? And I don't remember exactly what his answer was. But for me, if you asked this question in advance, you would know that they expected a lot of phone calls. You also would have noticed on their ad, they want a direct response, but they're running a branding ad. So because of that, it leads me to this second question, and that is managing customer expectations from the get-go. If we could create the perfect ad campaign for you, what would you want to have happen? Now, they might say, Ryan, I need to sell 500 wheelchairs. Ryan, I need to sell 50 mountain bikes. Or, at least you'll know what it is that they're expecting. And then you can manage their expectations based upon past performance, things that you've seen in the past. All right, let me give you an example. The events, the Kinder Cup event that my wife owns, that I am charged with selling all the sponsorships and media for. I recently was working with a saddle manufacturer. The saddle manufacturer, as I talked to him about participating in the event, being a part of the webinar and webcast, media, I said, so tell me, if everything was perfect at the event, the webcast, if all the media was perfect, what do you want the result to be? And he said, I'd love to sell 100 saddles. Now, I immediately was like, yeah, right, wouldn't that be nice? No, I said, okay, so you want to sell about 100 saddles. Based on in the past, saddle manufacturers that participate in this event and buy a $2,300 sponsorship, I know that they usually are able to trade in 5 or 6 saddles, move 4 or 5 brand new saddles. If we could help you move 4 or 5 brand new saddles, would you be happy with that? And he said, well, yeah, I would be happy. So he went from 100 to 4 or 5 in a matter of seconds just because I asked this question. Now, what if I hadn't asked the question? What if I had never known what his expectations were? Then he was expecting to sell 100 saddles. And so he's going to be mad, he's not going to renew, etc. So that's why this is better than, tell me about your 2018 marketing plans. Everyone says that. How about this question? Tell me a little bit more about your business. When someone asks me, tell me, Ryan, about your business, I usually say, tell me what you know about my business. Because there's this thing called the internet. And on the internet, you can learn a lot about people before you get on a sales call, so you can make some good quality assumptions. This question is all about managing expectations. And I think it's a great one, especially as it relates to direct response ads, especially as it relates to digital and things like that. Okay? All right, so I think it's a great one. Thanks so much. All right, so let's go to the next question. How much would the perfect marketing plan cost you per month? So when I'm dealing with objections on a sales call, when I'm talking about money with somebody, after I ask them if they find value in the ideas that I've presented, or I talk about their expectations and how they want to be perceived in the market, if they constantly come back to me and say, I don't have any money, my money's all spent, or whatever the circumstance is, I like to ask, okay, I respect that. Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser, how much would the perfect marketing plan cost you per month? Perfect. How much would it be? And even if they say to me, I don't have any money, I understand. If we could make something happen for you, what would the perfect cost be? A lot of times people try to negotiate, and I've got a workshop that I teach on negotiating tactics. It's a great workshop, a couple hours. We would talk about nothing but negotiating. A lot of times the salesperson will go first in a negotiation, and that's bad. A lot of times the salesperson will try to find out their budget and kind of split the difference or hedge their bets. That's a bad idea. I like to just ask flat out, how much, what would be the best thing that could happen, and how much would you like to see that cost? And then I work with them and work within their numbers. So if I pitched them a $5,000 idea, I can get them to say, well, I really only have $500. Then I'm able to work with them in that $500 to figure out what's the perfect plan we can do as it relates to your budget. And then I bring them back to number one. When you think about marketing, you have $500. I really can't even come up with a present marketing option for $500. And one of the things I recently heard that I will repeat to you, and you'll hear me say it a lot, I liked this statement, and that is, I'd rather turn you down than let you down. And I think it was Kevin James from Mosier Media that said that, and I think it was Kevin. Hopefully, I'm giving credit to the right people today. I'd rather turn you down than let you down. For $500, I don't know that it's going to make a dent, because it's definitely not going to give you a presence. It's kind of just going to be just a little hit, out there. And I don't know that it's going to help. So that's number 3. All right, number 4. And I see some questions coming in. I'm trying to weave those into the conversation. All right, number 4. What do you do that is different from your nearest competitor? What do you do that's different from your nearest competitor? And the reason that I really love this question is because when it comes to somebody's competition, I don't want to assume that I know. Okay, when it comes to somebody's competition, I don't want to assume that I know about their competitor. Now, maybe I know who the competitor is. Maybe I know where the competitor also runs. But I want to get from the advertiser, what do they think that they do better than their competitor? What's interesting to me, if you've been selling as long as I have, is the number of advertisers that think they're amazing and they're not. How about this? The number of advertisers that can barely run their own business, much less make marketing decisions. Who's with me on that? I'm amazed. Sometimes I just look at an advertiser and I say to myself, I don't know how you even got up this morning and put your shoes on. You're making serious decisions here and you don't know what you're doing. It's our job to guide them, right? We need to fall in love with our advertisers and guide them. So I want to find out, what do you do different? Now, why do I ask this question? I ask this question specifically so I can come up with ad creative. I can come up with ad ideas. I can come up with copy ideas. I can be creative. I can come up with all kinds of different things. Now, somebody chatted over, they're confused. What's wrong with the question? So let me repeat this question for everybody. What's wrong with the question, what are your 2018 marketing goals? There's nothing fundamentally wrong with that question. Okay, there's nothing fundamentally wrong. The problem is nearly every media sales rep asks that question. So you're not unique, you're not different, you're the same as everybody else that's walked through the door. The same people that have asked those 10 tall questions. They walk people through a needs assessment. I want to have a conversation with my advertiser. And that's where these questions come from. All right, so I ask them, what do you do different? And they say, we have the fastest response time in the county, just as an example. We respond within 2 hours. Well, that's something they're proud of. It's something that is a benefit to the reader, okay, to the reader of our magazine or our website, or the viewer of our TV station, or the listener of our radio station. And so what I can do then is get their brain thinking about creative. Okay, how can we mention that? What visuals can we show? I might even say, oh, Mrs. Advertiser, this would be awesome. What we could do is we could show a picture of your van. We can put clear copy that you've got the fastest response time. We can do a call tracking number that rings through to your dispatcher, or whatever the circumstance is. Maybe you're in the automotive space, just as an example. That's your niche. And one of your advertisers has a lubrication product that lasts 10 times longer. That is a promotional point. And so what it does is it gets them thinking about the ad as opposed to thinking about the money. Because if I can get them excited about the ad, and if I can get them excited about the campaign, a lot of times I can get them to open up that pocketbook and spend a little bit of that money as well. All right, that's number 4 of my 10. Number 4. Let's go on to number 5. And then after number 5, what we're going to do is we'll take a quick break and to drink some coffee, and I'll answer the questions that have come in as well. All right, so number 5 of 10. What ads have worked for you in the past, and why do you feel that they worked? Or for those of you in the newspaper business, this is a good one you hear a lot. So yeah, we ran an ad in the newspaper like 3 years ago, and we didn't get any response, so we don't really want to run again. Okay, tell me, why do you think your ad didn't work? So you can take this one, number 5, two ways. You could say, what ads have worked for you in the past? Or if they say, yeah, not really interested, why do you think that your ads in the past didn't work? Was it the call to action? Was it the creative? Was it the offer? And maybe you'll have a copy of that ad as well. Now, the reason that I like to find out what has worked in the past is because maybe they haven't run with us in a while. And why do we always want to try something out of the box? Why do we always want to try something brand new? Why? Because it makes us feel better. It makes us feel better about ourselves. I recently was working with an advertiser that said, you know, Ryan, I'm going to do all my advertising on Snapchat. Everything I'm going to do on Snapchat. And I wanted to choke him. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to choke him or smack him. Smack him in the face. Come on, wake up! Snapchat, what are you thinking? All right, you know, you sell thermometers, okay, to hospitals. They're not going to be on Snapchat. I said, tell me why. Tell me why are you doing that? What's behind that? Well, Ryan, I feel like we have to do something different. So I asked, well, tell me, in the past, maybe even 3 years ago, what ads worked for you in the past? It's highly likely that they would work again. Online, what topics, what webinars worked for you in the past? Digital ads, videos, what has worked for you in the past? Because if it worked in the past, it probably, since our readers haven't changed that much, it's probably going to work now. Maybe we need to freshen it up and things like that. It's one of the reasons that imitation is often said to be the fondest form of flattery, because a lot of times you can replicate ideas and have some really, really great success. So number 5, you can flip 2 ways. 1, what ads have worked for you in the past? Because let's rinse and repeat on that. Or if they say, listen, we ran with you before and it didn't work. Okay, tell me why. Tell me what, in your opinion, why do you think that ad didn't work? Now, as a side note to that, you probably should know what they've done in the past. Look in your CRM, look at past issues or things like that. You probably should know what they've done in the past, but maybe you don't have a resource, an archive to look through on that. So that could be important as well. All right, we've got 10 tips. Let's take a little coffee break here, answer some questions. Big fan of coffee on this end. I like that. You're the same person that always asks this question, is that really coffee that's in your cup? Yes, it really is coffee in my cup. All right, let's answer a few questions. All right, I'm brand new to the business. What do I do to make these questions kind of just roll off my tongue? Okay, great, excellent question. Practice. As much as people don't want to hear that, what I really like to say on a very, very regular basis is that you need to practice. There's a reason that at the height of his career, Michael Jordan was shooting hundreds of free throws a day. There's a reason for that. And the reason is that he knew that practice is going to make perfect. Now, role-playing is, somebody just chatted over, I hate role-playing, okay? Me too. Role-playing is a little bit different. Most people joke about role-playing, and I don't think that's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is working with a colleague that you trust, and then batting these questions and answers back and forth so they really kind of roll off your tongue. Or what I like to do is record myself. I'll take my iPhone and I will go and I'll turn on the voice memo and I'll record myself speaking and I'll listen back to that or get feedback on that. All right, what type of companies are you normally working with that these questions would be relevant? Good question. These questions would be relevant to any company, whether you're in the city and regional space or you're in the B2B space. So just in case there's any confusion, what we're doing on this, all I'm selling constantly is advertising. So I'm working with, on the community side, I'm going to be working with bankers, hospitals, things like that. On the B2B side, I'm going to be working with HP, Cisco. I even, I'm talking with an agency. I use these questions as well. Now keep in mind, in previous training, these questions are a part of my total meeting process. When I'm hosting meetings with people, these are just a part of that question. All right, so another question. I've had 3 questions that relate to money and to the budget. And so I'm gonna try to be brief, and I must be not communicating this point well, so I'll try one more time, and then we've got to move on from it. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ask what their budget is. What I'm saying is you should ask it in a different way, because when you ask what someone's budget is, they either lie or they don't know, or maybe they don't want to share it with you. So I just ask that in a completely different way. So it's not that I don't want to know their budget. I do. I just want to ask it in a way where I can actually get to the heart of the matter. Do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? All right, question from Sarah. Hey, Sarah, Oklahoma City, Sarah. On the present, competitive, or dominant question, what if their budget is just big enough for present? Will they be discouraged by not being able to be competitive or dominant? Great question. Will they be discouraged? Quite honestly, yes, they will. They will be discouraged. But here is the point that I'd like to bring across to everybody, and that is we want to educate our advertisers over the long term of what it is they need to do if they want to be a dominating force in the market. And so the only way to do that is to really have, what I like to call a Band-Aid moment. A Band-Aid moment is if you peel it off slowly, it really, really hurts. Instead, rip it off fast and share with them quickly what it takes, and then wrap that with success stories as well. Because what we really want to have happen is we really want them to understand that they can be dominant and they can be competitive, but here we go, it's going to come at a cost. Okay? All right, so let's answer just one more question, then we'll get back to, because these are related to the topic. Question, which media has a better response, is one that I like to use. Which media has a better response? And you can really focus in on which media. I like to say that print drives digital return on investment, and digital for me is great, but it's hard to stand out from the crowd as it relates to digital opportunities. It's really hard to stand out from the crowd. So it just makes it, a little bit tougher. All right, we've got about 70 questions, so we'll do our best to get through some of those other ones as we roll forward. All right, number 6 on our 10 critical questions. Number 6, are there, or it should say there, by the way, I see that spelling error, are there any new products or services you're going to debut in the next 6 months so we can plan ahead together? And somebody just asked, can you get a copy of this? You will get a copy of all these questions. Are there any new products or services you'll debut in the next 6 months so that we can plan ahead together? Now, what you might think to yourself is asking this question, can I find from their press releases online? Can I go to their company Facebook page? Can I go learn a lot about them in advance? Absolutely. So you might rephrase this to say, I saw that you're doing such and such on your company Facebook page. Or I saw that you're promoting such and such on your website. Or I read on your press releases that you're doing this and this. Besides those things, is there anything new happening beyond that in the next 6 months so that we can plan ahead together? What I find is that very often salespeople live in the now. And that's fine, except that if you do that, if you live in the now, you will never get off the perpetual hamster wheel from hell. You just won't. And a lot of you are caught on that hamster wheel from hell, meaning that every issue, every month, you're just, you're on that hamster wheel. You just will never get off of it until you plan for the future. Sometimes an advertiser won't have any money now, but they will have money for a new product launch or a new campaign or a new service offering later on. And so for me, this is a critical question. I want to find out any new products you're debuting. Now, somebody just chatted over, but doesn't that go back to what are your marketing plans? Honestly, folks, I don't care what somebody's marketing plan is, meaning I don't care if they're going to promote purple dinosaurs or if they're going to promote gold watches. I don't care, because my audience is the same. I don't care what they're going to promote. What I care is, do they want to be competitive? Do they want to be present? Do they want to be dominant? I want to know what is your marketing in terms of your goal overall in the marketplace. I can help you promote purple dinosaurs or gray shoes. It doesn't matter. Our readers are going to love it or they're not. So for me, it's not as much about the budget as it is about what do they want to try to accomplish. And then I can tell you how much you're going to have to spend to potentially make that happen. Okay, to make that happen. All right, how does social media play a role in your advertising? It's a great question to ask. It really is kind of, if you will, the 10,000-pound gorilla in the room. So I'd rather just ask. Now, what I do for me, so before I get on a client call, I'm going to go into Magazine Manager. I'm going to look at my notes, because what I do is I research in advance. So prior to a client call, usually the week before. So this afternoon, after this webinar, what I'm going to do is I do research and development on Friday afternoons. I don't pitch new business on Friday afternoons. And somebody just chatted through why. Okay, the reason I don't pitch new business on Friday afternoons is I don't want them to have the weekend to forget about me. So that's why I don't pitch new business on Friday afternoons. Instead, I will do follow-up, I'll do research and development, but I don't pitch new business on Fridays. So on Fridays, when I'm doing research and development, I'm researching today for the calls, the sales calls that I'm going to have next week. That's what I'm researching for. I'm going to put my notes in Magazine Manager, and I'm going to reference those notes prior to going on that call. Some of the things that I'm researching, I will go to their company Facebook page. I will find out, are they boosting posts? I'll go to their Instagram account. Are they doing advertising on Instagram? I will search on Google. Are they buying Google AdWords? Sometimes I'll go to the website spyfoo.com. So that's S-P-Y, F as in Frank, U as in unicorn, spyfoo.com. Find out, what are they doing as far as pay-per-click goes? What are they doing in terms of SEO? I do that research in advance. So when I ask this question, how does social media play a role in your advertising? I probably already know the answer, but I want to hear it through their mouth. I want to see it through their eyes. Now, you can go back at any time to our previous webinars. Okay, so you could go over to the Magazine Manager website, or you could go to 360 Ad Sales and get a hold of these past webinars. What you do when you see that is you will actually see that we actually have statistically shown that social media is more expensive than print media. It's more expensive on a cost per thousand basis in almost every market served. Keep in mind, social media costs and Google AdWords costs collectively on average have gone up almost 400%, the cost, in the last 4 and 5 years. So because of that, on a cost per thousand basis, and I just did this test yesterday, okay, with Western Media in Colorado, we determined for their audience with pass along of 60,000, one boosted post to reach that same audience, one boosted post was going to be $225. $225 for one boosted post. That's it. That's all they're getting for that money. So on a cost per thousand basis, you can reach our audience 20 and 30 times over on a cost per thousand basis. So that's why this question for me is such an important question to ask, just an absolutely vital question to ask. Now, a couple questions from a couple folks. I don't know a lot about social media. What should I do? First of all, go watch some of our past webinars. There's one called How to Sell Digital Like a Boss. Okay, I think that's a good one to start with. The other is really start looking at webinars that are available from Publishing Executive. Attend conferences like the one coming up in Chicago. The Niche Digital Conference, or the Niche Digital Summit coming up in Chicago, is all about the digital side of your business. I'll be there doing a workshop. There's all kinds of great speakers that are there. And if you want to save $200, let me know. I've got a code that you can use for that. So that's what you do. You just got to go, and you've just got to learn. All right, critical question 8 of 10. Do you have any videos to promote your product or service? Do you have any videos to promote your product or service? Now, the reason this is important is because typically, if an advertiser, whether they're in the B2B space or the consumer space, if they have a video, that means they've paid somebody to produce a video, typically. And so they want to get some return on investment for that video that they have had produced. And so because of that, I know that they will probably want to promote that video if I'll give them some type of vehicle to do that. And so because of that, this is why I ask this question. Now, there's another reason that I ask this question. We know that pictures drive clicks online. Okay, we know that pictures drive clicks online. We also know that statistically, and you can find this tidbit at the Interactive Advertising Bureau website or at emarketer.com, you will see as much as a 31% lift in clicks, impressions, responses to a digital ad if a video is what people are going to get. So even a banner ad that promises a video is going to get a better response. When I'm selling, some of you know this, when I'm selling to my new clients, I use YouTube videos that I've prepared all of the time. A lot of companies, I just happen to have quite a few clients in the healthcare space, they tend to make videos about their new products. And so because of that, I'm able to then use those videos as a way to help drive return on investment. So one of the questions that came through is, how do you handle the print versus digital objection or debate? And we actually have a webinar, Magazine Manager and the Newspaper Manager. We did a webinar on that, but let me weave that question into this conversation. Print drives the familiar factor. Just does. Print drives the familiar factor. People are more likely to click on things or participate with products or talk to people that they're more familiar with. So print actually drives the familiar factor, which then when someone sees your digital ad, it should increase your return on investment. Now, if you add to that, Mrs. or Mr. Advertiser, if you add to that your video into the mix, into your ad campaign, you could potentially see as much as a 30 to 31% lift, according to emarketer.com, in the responsiveness and retention of your ad. So if they have a video online and you know that it's there, talk about it. I find that you will get more money in the media sale, more money in the end, if you can figure out a way to incorporate video into it. All right, another chat that came across. Video is expensive, that's why we don't do it. I'm not necessarily suggesting that you get in the video business. I love video. Those of you that know me know that I started in the TV and radio business and then found a love for magazines and the internet. There's a lot of ways to do video for your clients in a more inexpensive way. Let me give you a little tidbit and then we'll move on. In most communities around the United States, and we've got friends from Canada and the UK and Australia that are joining us today, you have what's referred to as event videographers. Event videographers. Event videographers are those ladies and gentlemen that typically will shoot video of weddings, football games, and things like that. They're wonderful video folks. They're a lot less expensive than mainstream production companies, and I'm a big proponent of production companies. My brother Gabriel and his wife Andra own the Denver Film Company. So if you're looking for a high-end video to be produced, he's your guy to call. So there you go. But there's also these event video producers that are excellent. A lot of times they'll do trade with you. They deal with clients very well because they're used to dealing with brides and brides' mothers and things like that. So you can get into the video business in a lot more affordable pace. What I'm really talking about, though, is those advertisers that already have a video done. Now, one of the best examples, if you want to see who's really doing this well, I really like what autobodynews.com is doing with video. I think they've done a great job working with their advertisers. I would say that one of the very best revenue generators using video that I've ever encountered is a publisher at Penwell named Tim Dower. And Tim has revolutionized for that company the video side of the revenue business. They make a lot of money working with advertisers' videos and creating those videos. And that's why this is such an critical and important question to ask. So if you want to see what Tim and his team are doing, you can check them out at waterworld.com. Waterworld.com. Autobodynews.com is doing a great job. On the consumer side, check out what St. Louis Magazine is doing. St. Louis Mag, I think, .com has got a bunch of great videos on their website as well, and several others. All right, so that's number 8. That's number 8. All right, number 9 of 10 And I apologize if I can't get to all your questions, guys. There's a lot of them that have come in, so thanks for that. Number 9, how many times, Mr. Advertiser, do you feel a new customer of yours needs to see your marketing message or your advertising message before they make a decision to do business with you? Now, you can phrase this any way that you want. You might say, let me ask you a question. In your opinion, how many times does a new customer of yours, brand new, need to see your marketing message before they decide to do business with you? And I want to find out their answer. Now, you might say, well, Ryan, I mean, why does their answer matter? The reason that their answer matters is because I want to figure out, I want to find out, do they know anything about marketing? Recently, I had an advertiser that said, I guess a couple times. You see it a couple times? You know, yeah. And I said, I wish it was that easy, a couple times. No, it's not a couple of times. It's way more than that. So what if they said 55? It's probably too high. But let me give you a couple of examples of the number that you want to hear. Typically, what you want to understand is that psychologically, scientists tell us that human beings can only retain 7 things in their short-term memory. Okay, most humans can only retain 7 things in their short-term memory. Aha, that's where that magic number of marketing number 7 came from. 7, that's where that comes from. It's been taught in colleges, you know, maybe since the 30s or 20s or 30s, 7 times. Well, it's interesting. About 4 years ago, I think, is when Jay Baer, B-A-E-R, wrote his book called Utility, Y-O-U-Tility. Jay Baer, B-A-E-R. Good book. And what he says in his book is that very often in today's environment, and the book is, I think, 3 years old, you do need to be in front of people in multiple ways, on multiple days, but you might need 25 to 35 impressions before somebody makes a decision. 25 to 35 times. That's crazy. Even if you don't agree, if you think, oh, Ryan, no way. One ad and I make a reaction to it. Well, there are some products that you can see one ad and you will make a reaction. Those are typically called direct response products. Typically, a direct response product is priced at $75 or less, typically. So that'd be your Ginsu knives, your Thigh Master, you know, things like that. Stuff you'd see on late night TV. Typically, if somebody is going to make a purchase, they're going to need to see an ad way more than one time. The other thing that you can do is walk your advertisers through this mental game. It is typically cheaper on average to advertise for 12 months. It's typically cheaper to do that than to try to guess when your customers are going to buy. And an average, financially, if you were to average it out, if you go up and down, in and out, run an ad and then drop, in and out, typically you have to run bigger ads, you have to run more ads when you do that than if you just stayed advertising. If you just stayed advertising. You know, a story that I once heard that I think is very relevant to this is what happened in 2006, 7, and 8. Those of you that were in the media business know those were not fun times. That was tough. That was a tough few years. There was one pizza company that kept advertising when everybody else cut their ad budgets. There was one pizza company that kept right on advertising. They followed the Quaker Oats and the Procter & Gamble or Oxidol of the Great Depression marketing philosophy. And the marketing philosophy was, rather than stop advertising, I'm going to keep advertising so that when the recession is over, I don't have to spend all that money catching up. Papa John's, that's who it was, Papa John's. Papa John's kept advertising in a very substantial way during this last recession. And they came out on top. Their market share, they well dominate Pizza Hut. They dominate Domino's. Papa John's has got quite an amazing market share. Little Caesars basically stopped advertising during the Great Recession. I don't even know where there's a local Little Caesars, to be honest. Maybe they're your favorite pizza company. So it all goes back to, how many times do you feel a new customer of yours needs to see your advertising message before they make a decision to do business with you? If the advertiser says to me 5 times, I usually will reply something like, wow, I wish it was that easy. That would be awesome. I wish it was that easy. But it's not. What we have found and what our experience shows us and what our past advertisers tell us is that they need to run ads for 3, 4, 5 months before they really start seeing return on their investment. It's not a sales pitch. It's the truth, because most consumers need to see your marketing message multiple times. They need to see it in multiple ways on multiple days. You need to buy print, TV, radio, digital. You need to buy multiple products from us. Somebody just chatted over, what if they say, I have no money? Okay, there's two options. First is go back to question number 1. Do they want to even have a presence in the market? If they don't, then the conversation is very, very brief. If they do want to have a presence, it is going to come at a cost. Okay, they can't expect to get results and not do anything. They just can't. All right, that's number 9. All right, and let's move on to number 10. Now, number 10 is not, these are not listed in any necessarily numeric order from an importance perspective, but it's one that I like to talk about on a regular basis. So critical question number 10. And no, I don't always ask all 10 of these. Do you have a system in place, Mr. or Mrs. Advertiser? Do you have a system in place to track your advertising? For example, do you have dedicated call-in numbers? Do you have special promo codes? Do you use a unique website URL? Do you have dedicated promo cards? Do you have coupons? I mean, what do you have? What do you have in place to track your advertising? Now, you could also add to that. Before you begin a campaign with us, I'd love for you to add me as an admin on your Google Analytics. Just give me the ability to read your Google Analytics for you. And I do that all the time now. And now not everybody will do that, but I do ask for a copy. Could I, before we begin this campaign, print or digital, I don't care, could I get a copy of your most recent Google Analytics? What I'm going to do is I'm going to have my digital team look at it, and we're going to do some analysis for you. And then I'll get a copy of your Google Analytics at the end of your ad campaign. And then we're going to analyze that and see what happened to your website traffic. So if they don't have a dedicated call-in number, which you can use callrail.com for that, they're not going to know who's calling them. Now, recently I did say to someone, to an advertiser, I would like to list your cell phone in the ad. Whoa, 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 no, not putting my cell phone in the ad. And I said, are you afraid you're going to get too many calls, or what's the problem? You know, I want you to know when people are calling. So call-in numbers are old school. Somebody just chatted that across. Old school. It is old school, but call tracking numbers are very important in the advertising business, especially if your advertiser wants phone calls. You know, it's really important. Now, somebody has asked across, they don't understand unique URLs. So a unique website, which is good, or a unique URL is somebody that has multiple .com names for their business. So as an example, I might have RyanDohrn.com. I might have RyanDohrn salestrainer.com. I might have GoRyanDohrn.com. And I'm going to run in my ads in 3 different magazines. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go and put a different .com name in each magazine. All of those .com names are all going to come to my main website. They're all going to come to the main website. And you can track this all then through your Google Analytics. Now, if you don't know, what I'm talking about or where to find that, what you can do is on the 360 Ad Sales website, right next to the podcast link, right here to the left is one that says Ad Sales Blog. And if you click on that, then you're going to be able to see the blog posts I've done, and there's one called Print is Trackable. So go to 360 Ad Sales, click on that, go to the blog post, Print is Trackable. When you do that, what you're going to find is all the directions for an advertiser on what they can do to track their print advertising through a unique website URL. So I think that's important. So you can go and potentially, go and check that out. Now, as we conclude, there's a couple things that I want to share with you first before you leave, because we've got a bunch of follow-up and I'm going to get to your questions. We're going to answer questions all the way up until the top of the hour. First of all, I really would encourage you, as you're tracking these questions, to test them and also to come up with your own. And I'd love for you right now to chat through some of the questions that you typically ask so we can share them with the group. but I want to use my CRM to keep up with all of this stuff. With the questions I'm asking, who I'm calling on, what am I saying, what's the research and everything that I'm presenting, because I truly believe those sales reps that ask great questions are those sales reps that just sell more. You have to be good at asking questions. You have to practice, and you don't want to ask the same questions that everybody always asks. It just, quite honestly, it's boring, and honestly, it just really does not. It just does not make a lot of sense. All right, let's get to your questions. And again, a big thank you to the magazine manager and the newspaper manager, Christy and Andy and Mark and Brad, and I'm forgetting people. Thank you so much for supporting your advertising sales community by hosting this webinar. We really appreciate it. Reach out to those folks and tell them how much you appreciate it, because I'm an expensive cat. All right, so many clients feel, let's go through these questions all the way to the top of the hour. We're going to go through, there's a lot of them. We're going to go through them. Many clients feel that their online ads are working better than print because they're easily trackable, and some do indeed have some good results. This can be difficult when pitching print. I understand, and so my response to that is what I slightly mentioned earlier, and that is I use print to drive the familiar factor. It is by nature, we as humans, by nature, we do not want to talk to strangers. We don't engage with strangers. Now, I'm weird. I've never met a stranger. I love talking to people. But for the most part, most people don't like talking to strangers. You typically do not engage online with products or companies that you don't know anything about. You're more likely to engage with companies, open emails from companies, respond to companies' offers if you know who they are. That's what print does beautifully. Print drives, really drives the familiar factor. Now, print and digital work together. Digital is not cheaper. The people that think it's cheaper don't understand cost per thousand. In almost all cases, on a cost per thousand basis, you can reach a larger audience for less money using print. But print and digital together, so I think it's a good question, Angie, that you asked. How do you respond to print versus digital? I tie the two of them together. I respectfully say I understand what it is that you're asking. But what I need to do is explain to you, we really want to drive this familiar factor. Okay, really want to drive those familiar factor. All right, somebody asks, should these be done on initial phone calls, initial meetings, follow-ups? These are the type of questions that I would ask towards the middle of my sales call. So in most of my sales calls, and we don't have time to get into it today, I cover it in my online training and in my live training. When I am hosting a meeting with somebody, I typically begin with a time validation. Thanks so much for your 20 minutes. Do you still have 20 minutes? That's from my Sandler training. Then what I do is I usually say, may I cut to the chase as to why I wanted to meet with you? Yeah, sure. Okay, because then it triggers them that I want this meeting to be done as much as they do. It's psychological. Then I say, may I briefly share with you 3 or 4 success stories of advertisers like you that have been successful with us. And then I talk about success stories. Then I begin to ask them those market-determining questions. Question number 1, when you think about marketing to your community or to this industry that we serve, do you want to be present, competitive, or dominant? And that's how I begin most of my conversations today. I begin most of my conversations with that. David asked the question, please define present, competitive, and dominant. Happy to do that. For me, present is someone that wants to have just a light presence in the market. They really don't want to be competitive. They just want to run a few ads. They kind of want to keep their name out there, keep their toe in the water. Want to run a little digital, a little print, not a whole lot of anything. Competitive means we tell them what their nearest competitor is doing, and they want to go at it. They want to fight tit for tat, nose to nose. So they will need to spend and do what their nearest competitor is doing. Dominant is doing more than your current competitor does. Dominant means looking at the landscape, figuring out how many ads your competitor's running, and for me, then doing more, okay, doing more than that, doing more than that. Somebody asked this question, is this about the exploration? Is this about a needs assessment? What is this, where does this fit into the equation? What's this all about? I am not a fan of needs assessments. All of you that know me well know that. The reason I'm not a fan of needs assessments is because everyone does that. It's old, it's trite, it's overused, whatever phrase it is that you want to talk about. It's just overused. Needs assessments were awesome when people weren't doing it. Instead of doing a formal needs assessment, because most people don't like them anymore. When you say needs assessment, most people roll their eyes or slightly throw up in their throat, okay? Instead, I want to just ask questions to really create a conversation. And to Shelly's point, and to Katie's point, and I think to Mark's point, questioning people can get a little uncomfortable. It really is all about how you phrase it. It's really about how you ask the questions. And what you want to do is make sure it's natural and it's a part of the conversation. You really don't want it to be forced. What I don't like is when people say, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you this. Instead, I just want it to be a part of the natural progression of the conversation. So when you think about marketing to your community or to your industry, do you want to have a presence, or do you want to be competitive, or do you want to dominate? And I want them to say dominate because I want to walk them through it. So I think that it's, very, very important. Somebody asked about where to find the past archives of these webinars. You can go over to 360adsales.com. You can also go over to the Magazine Manager website and find those as well. Or reach out to me, Ryan at 360adsales.com, or Ryan at brainswellmedia.com. Happy to do that as well. All right, a couple more questions. Somebody asked, could you please explain cost per thousand? Yeah, so cost per thousand is the amount of money that I'm going to charge an advertiser to reach 1,000 readers, or to get 1,000 views of a banner ad. So if I've got 1,000 readers and my cost per thousand is $50, okay, then it's going to cost you $50. If you would like, for example, 1,000 banner ad impressions from me, and the cost per thousand is $20. Every 1,000 times I serve that ad for you, I'm going to charge you $20. And so for me, that's the easiest way, really, to explain, our cost per thousand. Okay. All right. Let's see. We got a couple more questions. Some of these are repeating. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. So what was the name of the company that you referenced in terms of the pizza example? Papa John's is the name of the company. How often do you use multiple ways in multiple days in your questioning? It's a part of my battle cry. I use it absolutely all of the time. So I think that's an important piece. As it relates to question number one, I like that. I'm just wondering if I can show up with proposals ready to go. Yeah, absolutely you can. I never leave. If you're leaving right now, you're going to miss out on an important one. Here we go. Last one of the day, my friends. I never have a meeting with somebody without going in with a proposal ready to go. I never have. I never do that. And the reason is because I know that it's going to take this to be dominant in our market. I know that it's going to take this amount of money to be competitive, and I know it's going to take this amount of money to be present. There's only 3 options unless you want to be absent. And so I used to call it maximum exposure, mid-level exposure, smart business. Now I call it present, competitive, and dominant. I always go in ready to go based upon what their competition is doing or is not doing in the market, because people love to hear conversations as it relates to that way. So I think that's a very, very important piece. All right, friends, thanks to the Magazine Manager and the Newspaper Manager for putting on this webinar today. I'm always thrilled, and I know I didn't get to all of your questions. Feel free to reach out to me, Ryan at brainswellmedia.com. I would love nothing more to come and train your team. Would love that. And so reach out to me. I'm booked right now through September, but we're booking for October. Love to come to your office and train your team. But if you can't afford that, you can buy this online training, $349, 7 hours of training online. You can watch all of that online. And of course, please reach out to our friends at the Newspaper Manager and the Magazine Manager. Please let them know you appreciate this because I know that so many of you do. All right, friends, remember, if ad sales was easy, everybody be doing it, and they're not. So we're either crazy or we found a career that'll feed us for a lifetime. Happy Friday. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you out on the street. Reach out to me if you have questions. Ryan at brainswellmedia.com, or drop by the website 360 adsales.com, 360 adsales.com. And for those that are asking, the archive of the video will come out in about 24 to 48 hours. We'll send that link to you. All right, take care, everybody. Appreciate all of you joining us. Happy Friday.